Hello everybody, we're back out in the garage and it's time to start working on the 1977 Gravely Model 812. I recently picked this tractor up. It is in really good condition, but there are a few things I'm going to need to do to it, which is perfectly understandable. It's a 47-year-old machine, and even though it hasn't really seen much use in the last 17 years, things do kind of need to be addressed every now and then. What I didn't expect was I went to start it the other day and the engine was turning over very slowly. So I threw a multimeter on the battery. The battery was down a little bit over 10 volts. So it doesn't look like the charging system's working. So today, what I want to do is verify that the charging system is the problem and see exactly what part of it seems to be the issue. The other day when I went to start it and realized the battery was dead, I threw a charger on it for a little while just so I could start the engine. It's not a full charge, I'd say, but so I got my multimeter turned on and I just want to see what the voltage is on the battery without the tractor running. And we're sitting at 11, about 11 and a half, so just short of a full charge. So what I want to do now is I want to confirm whether or not the charging system is working. If I start the tractor and I'm still seeing, with the engine throttled up, about 11 and a half volts on the battery, charging system's dead. If the charging system's working, I should be seeing at least about 14 volts on that battery. So let's start this thing up and let's see where we're at. So as you can see, with the tractor running and throttle all the way up, we are still only at about 11 and a half volts. Charging system is not working. So let's go ahead and we'll start testing with the stator and just work our way forward. The charging system of these tractors begins at something called the stator. What that is basically like an alternator for your car. It actually, in some of the literature, it's actually referred to as an alternator, but it is found behind the flywheel, which is behind this shroud, this screen, and all of this stuff. As the engine runs and turns over, it generates AC current, alternating current, kind of like the current in your house, only not near as much voltage. And we have these two wires that come out of the stator, hook up to this connector, and then these two wires, where that AC current will travel up to the front of the tractor, and they plug into this little aluminum thing on the left-hand side with the cooling fins. That's called a voltage regulator. So the AC current goes into the voltage regulator, and it's then converted to about 14 volts of DC current, which runs the tractor, charges the battery, and all that stuff. So if your charging system isn't working, one of those components or wires somewhere is the problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a multimeter and we're going to confirm that the charging system is the problem, and then we're going to figure out exactly where the issue is. Now that we have the hood off the tractor, we are going to focus our attention right here. This little three-prong plug that's sitting on top of the voltage regulator. So I pull that plug off. What you'll see is there's two prongs side by side. Those are the two wires that come out of the stator. And then there's a third prong in the back that's all by itself. That is the wire that comes out of the voltage regulator and ends up at the battery and charges the system. So I could start by checking the stator at that plug all the way at the back of the machine, but I'm going to go ahead and test it up here and if the stator tests good from here, then I know the wiring is good. If the stator tests bad from here, then I'll need to go to the back of the machine, check it, and see if the problem's with the wiring. Now that I have the plug off the voltage regulator, I'm going to take my multimeter, and I've got it set to AC volts 200. I'm going to take my two leads, and I'm going to plug them into the two leads for the stator. And again, it's the two that are side by side. And then I'm going to start the engine up, get it to wide open throttle. And if the stator is working according to the service manual, we will see more than 28 volts AC on the tester. If the stator is not working, it'll be less than 28 volts. So let's start the engine. Let's see what we've got. Now we know that the stator is functioning properly, and the wiring from the stator into this plug, all of that is good. That leads us to believe we probably have a voltage regulator issue, but we could also have a wiring issue from the voltage regulator through the key switch to the battery. So we need to eliminate that problem. The easiest way to do that is I'm going to take one of my leads, I'm going to put it into the output wire from the voltage regulator. I'm going to take my multimeter, I'm going to put it on continuity mode, and if we have a complete circuit, you'll see the display change. You should hear an alarm. With the key in the off position, there should be no complete circuit from the voltage regulator to the positive on the battery. You see that we got nothing there. If we put the key in the run position, this circuit should now be complete. And it is. So we know the key switch is good, the wiring there is good. The problem is definitely with that voltage regulator. But there's one final test I need to make because we could have a bad ground on this thing. The voltage regulator is bolted onto the firewall here with two little bolts, and that's how this thing grounds. So I'm going to leave my multimeter on continuity mode. I'm going to put one lead in the negative for the battery and touch the other lead to the metal on the voltage regulator, and we should see that circuit complete. And we have a good ground. So now we know with 100% certainty that voltage regulator is trash. We're going to need to replace it. There's something else electrical with this tractor that I need to address, and some of you have probably already noticed it. It took me a little while to pick up on it. You see this little fuse holder here in the dashboard? It takes a 30 amp glass fuse, one of these little things. Well, if you look around here, the backside, you'll notice that there is only one wire connected to that fuse. And I remember I looked at that thing and went, how in the heck does a fuse work when there's only one wire connected to it? And it took me a while to notice, if you look on the top toward the firewall, you see a little broken tab. That's the second connector. So at some point in time, the top connector broke on that fuse holder, and somebody decided to just go ahead and bypass the fuse by splicing the wires together. I am not a fan of bypassing fuses, so when I order my voltage regulator, I'm going to order a new fuse holder too, and hopefully the generic one that I can buy will fit in there. If not, I will install an inline one, but I am going to fix that problem. I'm not going to have a fuse bypassed in a machine. That's just not a smart idea. So as soon as the parts come in, we'll go ahead and get them installed. It's a couple days later, and my new voltage regulator and fuse holder came in. So it's time to start swapping out some parts. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to take care of this wiring issue that we're looking at here. The wire from the battery to the fuse holder, it's actually 3 sections of wire with 2 wire nuts in the middle. I'm going to strip all that out and just crimp up a new wire to go from the battery to the fuse holder. And the wire from the key switch to the fuse holder, I've got more than enough that I can just cut this little connector here off and put a new one on and plug it straight into the other end of the fuse. So let's go ahead and get those things taken care of. Now that we have a new voltage regulator and fuse holder installed, and we've ran a new wire between the battery and the fuse holder, it's time to see if the charging system is going to work. So you can see the battery, without the engine running, we're a little over 11.5 volts. So if the charging system works, when I start this up and put it at full throttle, you should see higher voltage than that. Let's see where we're at. Despite my cheap digital multimeter bouncing around a little bit, as you can see, charging system seems to be working just fine now. So it's time to put the hood back on, go out and mow the lawn. Thank you again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on another episode.